Welcome back to another edition of Components Breakdown. Today we're going to take a look at a brand new and incredibly unique style of deck building game called Eaten by Zombies by first-time designer Max Holiday. Eaten by Zombies places 2 to 4 players into the suburbs of 1940s Americana with one very simple goal, and that's to survive as the horde of the living dead make it their personal goal to force you to join their side through your own inevitable death, leaving the last human player alive victorious. Now, in order to stay alive in the game, players will have to scavenge the ransacked suburbs for resources, or swag, that has been left behind, all in an effort to build decks that can either fight or flee the zombie horde with some degree of certainty. What is so special and anomalous with Eaten by Zombies as a deck building game, though, is the atypical gameplay behind the game's premise, which takes the formulaic approach of deck building and injects it with a new set of mechanics that provide a completely different style of game than what most fans of the genre are used to. So let's briefly take a look at the game's set of components and a 2-player game setup. Eaten by Zombies' first and most obvious visual appeal is the wonderfully suited ammo-style case in which the game is shipped, all of which hold the game's 198 cards and 31 tab dividers. Now, I don't always talk about the quality of all of a game's components, but I did want to mention 2 very brief aspects regarding this particular release. First, the card quality in this game is impeccable, with bright, colorful cards printed on very sturdy linen cardstock, making it one of the best printed sets of cards I've seen yet for a deck building game. Second, the 31 tab dividers are likewise printed on extremely durable stock, but also provide a wealth of information about each card for which they correspond, making them not only extremely functional, but versatile in their use as well. Each player will start the game playing the role of one of the 4 remaining survivors, being Barney, Bob, June, or Mary. Players will begin by grabbing their individual survivor's unique starting deck, each of which utilizes completely different artwork but contain the same 12 starting items, which include 5 heavy sticks, 5 hide cards, and 2 sandwiches. Players will then shuffle these cards together to form what is called their safe house, drawing 6 cards from the top of their deck to form their starting hand. Now, each turn, players will venture out from their safe house to brave the gathering zombie horde in an attempt to collect additional swag needed in order to survive. The swag piles represent the items players can acquire during the game in order to strengthen their survivor's deck. To begin, players will place the 3 starting swag piles face up onto the center of the table. Now, in addition to this, 2 swag piles will be added at random for each player participating. Finally, players are going to create what is called a zombie deck, which is an individual deck itself, by combining and shuffling a base set number of level 1 through level 5 zombies, adding additional zombies again, completely dependent upon the number of players participating. This zombie deck, of course, represents the zombie horde itself, which players must continually face each turn as they attempt to search for additional resources. Let's briefly discuss the gameplay. Eaten by Zombies is a completely unique style of deck building game, and because of this, I want to focus as much of my attention as possible on the mechanics that drive the game, because I truly feel that this is what makes the game so special. The premise and overarching theme behind the game is that on each turn, the active player is required to leave their safe house to face the zombie horde, at which time the player must then elect to either fight or flee with the cards that they currently have in their hand. Only if the player is successful in doing one of these 2 actions may they have the opportunity to then scavenge through the available swag that's been thematically left behind by their friends and neighbors. However, if the player is unsuccessful in their attempts, then they must lose cards. And if they so happen to lose all of their cards, then they too become a zombie, which in turn allows the player a whole new set of actions as a zombie player. Now, I won't go into all the rules in this particular video, but I will give you a basic understanding of how the gameplay works. A turn sequence is quite simple. First, the active player must add 1 zombie to the zombie horde by flipping over 1 card from the top of the face-down zombie deck. The unique part about this action is that after the horde has been added to in this manner, Each opponent in counterclockwise order may then add one of their zombies from their hand to the existing zombie horde, making it extremely difficult for the active player to survive. Once all the zombies have been added, the active player must then decide to either fight or flee before playing any cards from their hand. Both of these two sets of actions have their own inherent strengths and weaknesses. If the player chooses to fight, then they may only play cards from their hand that have the fight or draw symbol on those cards. If the player instead chooses to flee, then they may only play cards from their hand that have the flee or draw symbols on those cards. Fighting allows the player to add up all the attack values listed on the cards that they have played. And if the attack value is greater than the rightmost zombie's level, then the active player kills that zombie and adds that zombie to their discard pile, which is the only way to acquire zombies into one's deck. The player will continue fighting zombies in the face-up horde, going right to left until all the zombies are either dead or the player is no longer able to defeat any more zombies. If the player is able to kill all of these zombies in the horde, only then may they scavenge for any number or combination of additional resources in the swag piles that are of a cost of up to their total fight value for that turn. However, again, two unique things will take place. First, all the cards that are purchased in this manner will be added to the player's hand and not to their discard pile. And second, the player may never buy more cards into their hand than their maximum hand limit, which is 6 total cards. Now, if the player loses or is unable to defeat all the zombies within the horde, then they must lose cards from their hand or from the top of their deck equal to the attrition value of all of the zombies left in the horde, with any card lost going back to their original swag piles. Now, this is simply one of the ways a player can become a zombie. Fleeing works very similar to fighting, but it too has its own unique twist. Fleeing allows the player to add up all of the flee values listed on the cards that they have played. However, the flee value of the active player must be greater than or equal to the combination attrition value of the entire horde in order to be successful. So in other words, you can't flee single zombies one at a time like you could when you fought. Being successful at fleeing likewise grants the active player the opportunity to scavenge for additional swag. This time, though, adding up their total flee value for the turn, but following the same rules of purchasing, such as a maximum hand limit of 6 and cards that you purchase going directly into your hand. Being unsuccessful at fleeing does have a slight advantage over fighting, in that the active player only loses half the attrition value of the combined zombie horde, making it a better proposition for those players who don't wish to lose a multitude of cards. And remember, fleeing does not net you any zombie cards into your discard pile, making you less susceptible into becoming a zombie yourself. After each player's turn, depending on whether or not the player fought or fled, the remaining zombie horde may or may not disperse or go away. If the player fought the horde, regardless of success or not, the remaining zombie horde will be returned to the zombie deck's discard pile. If the player successfully fled, then only the bottommost zombie or leftmost is returned to the discard pile. However, if they were unsuccessful, then the entire horde is placated and returned to the discard pile, all of which create very important tactical choices for the next player in turn order. Now, once this is complete, the active player will draw back up to 6 cards in hand, passing the turn order to the player on their left. Now, I've given you a basic understanding of how the game works and some of the different aspects that make the game so unique, such as purchasing cards directly into one's hand and a mechanic of attrition that forces players to drop swag when they unsuccessfully fight or flee from the horde. But that's really just a very small sampling of what makes Eaten by Zombies so great. What I haven't explained are the numerous nuances that create the game's wonderful sense of tension and impending doom, including the balancing act the players will face when deciding on what actions to partake in during each of their turns. The reason for this is quite simple. Eaten by Zombies can be won and lost in a variety of different ways, either with the last survivor left alive winning an outright victory, to an unlikely cooperative survivor win where the zombie deck is completely depleted, or even a zombie win, which is accomplished when those who have turned into zombie players force any other player into revealing an unplayable hand of 6 zombie cards, making all the other survivors go insane. And on top of all of this, I didn't even go into how incredibly creative and inventive other parts of the game are in a genre that has become so saturated with products. The ability for someone to become a zombie in the game is really an outright conclusion, because it is going to happen. But providing that same player or players with the opportunity to stay in the game with a whole new set of actions that can sway the game to one side or the other, but still regulate the opportunity for a win by the survivors, makes the game an exercise in brilliant and balanced game design. Eaten by Zombies is easily the most unique and well thought out deck building game in quite some time. And although I enjoy a multitude of games in this genre, it's hard not to overlook the sheer inventiveness of this title, which sets it apart from so many others. And with so many different ways to approach victory in the game, players will continue to uncover new strategies and combinations of actions to accomplish their goals as either a survivor or as a zombie, making the game both highly enjoyable and infinitely replayable. So that is Eaten by Zombies. I am Jeremy Salinas, and thank you again for watching.